Brussels police shut down the National Conservatism Conference just as Nigel Farage was speaking. He was on stage when this happened. There are also going to be other big names there. Hungary's Viktor Orban, Conservative MPs, including Suella Braverman and Miriam Cates. The Mayor of Brussels, though, said he had issued an order banning the conference to guarantee public safety, adding the far right is not welcome. The far right, this is just wildly illiberal, Dan, sinister.
Well, it is. And look, it shows a couple of things, as we've talked about before. The left is scared of debate. The people at that conference, and that conference has now been going for a number of years, there are some serious people. It's not just politicians, there's academics and public intellectuals that are trying to provide context to those in the West about, where do we go from here, given all the challenges that we have. And it's concerning that it's victim blaming, like we just talked about. Now, apparently, by having a conference and inviting speakers that are considered to be controversial, you're somehow inviting violence and that you're the one that's going to be shut down. It should be the other way around. Yes. Police should be protecting the conference to protect free speech and debate, but it's been flipped on its head.
To me, it's astonishing that you could have someone like Suella Braverman labelled far right and a danger to the public. The fact that she would be taking to stage to speak amongst leaders and thought leaders is somehow dangerous in Brussels. I mean, for the love of God. Now, let's come back to a crucial issue in this country. The government's nature positive plan has thankfully hit a road bump in West Australia. The Labor Party there are warning it's not going to be popular, and Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek will now stagger the plan. That's angered Green Group Stan, but this plan is still a hot mess. It's going to be catastrophic, not just for mining, but really so many other vital projects.
Well, you're right. There's not an aspect of our society that the nature positive plan wouldn't impact. Now, yes, there's been a minor back down, but the government is still going to proceed with the controversial Environmental Protection Agency. And what the Samuel Review recommended or talked about, and this was the major review into our environmental laws, it said you can have an Environmental Protection Agency, but it needs to be limited to compliance and enforcement. Instead, what the government is proposing is that this EPA would be in charge of approvals of projects. These are major resources projects. Now, there's a couple of problems. The first is that the role of the minister would be diminished. In our Westminster system, whether you agree or disagree, it must be the minister that decides on project approvals. And secondly, we all know where this is going to go. It's going to be an untouchable bureaucracy filled with activists that only consider the environmental side, but not the economic and social side.
Well, that is precisely what's going to happen. And just through the process, the so-called consultations, the lack of transparency there, the lack of information that's been put forward for such an enormous plan with wide-reaching consequences. I'm shocked that they're still proceeding with this. Is this delay or staggered approach just to try to save WA come their election next March?
It certainly looks political, and WA would be the state that is hardest hit given the importance of a resources sector. You're right to mention the transparency. There's been no real consultation about this. It's been shrouded in secrecy.
The consultation seems to be done in secret, which to me is questionable in itself. What's the point of having consultations if there's no transparency?
And if it's such a great plan, what do you have to hide? Why not bring the public along with you? So clearly they're trying to hide something. They've been caught out. But like I say, this EPA is a concern.
Absolutely. Now, children's rights campaigner Billboard Chris, we've had him on this program, has submitted a notice of appeal against the eSafety Commissioner in this country, Julie Inman Grant, over her takedown order for his post where he supposedly misgendered a trans activist. Tell me the latest with this case. It's a fascinating one. It's one that got international attention. People were shocked that this was happening in Australia, and you would think the eSafety Commissioner would have bigger priorities, I don't know, child exploitation for one, than to bring down posts on X.
Yeah, that's right. Look, there is a serious issue with the exposure of children to graphic and obscene content, and it needs to be dealt with. The problem that you've got here with this eSafety Commissioner, she's an activist.
Absolutely.
She will continue to expand her role to police the internet, to censor debate in a way that's consistent with her own ideological views. We're just talking about the EPA. It's the exact same problem. You have these unelected bureaucrats that have vague powers, and they will fill it with their views. And she has a track record of censorship, and it only ever targets one side. And unfortunately, we're seeing that happen again.
And let's not forget, we've mentioned it before on this program, she was appointed by the coalition government. This isn't some Labor appointment. This is another an example of the coalition wasting power. You do wonder why, what's the point of voting for them?
Well,
they kind of just appoint lefties to run the bureaucracy.
And also the misinformation and disinformation laws that started under Paul Fletcher when he was communicating. Now, this government's gone way further, but they permitted it through allowing it to go as far as it did.
Dan Wyle, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.